The Esports World Cup is a big international esports event that is taking place in July of this year in Saudi Arabia. It's going to have esports titles from across the board, including League of Legends, and I actually expect to see major names that you are very familiar with, major teams from all of the different regions competing in this event. I actually think it has the potential to have a prize pool even bigger than MSI or even Worlds for all I know, just based off of how much money they've said they're going to put into the pool for all of the esports. And yet, after this video, you will probably not hear any more coverage of this event from me, other than perhaps a little bit of dispirited references to it on Hotline League. So why is this? Well, the Esports World Cup is actually backed by the Saudi Arabian government financially, and it is part of a huge effort by that government to make Saudi Arabia the capital of esports over the next 5 years. And while I would normally be very excited, especially during a time of esports winter, to hear about money coming into the space, it's a little different here because a lot of people believe that this is an act of sports washing. And if you're not familiar with the term, it's this concept that a government will use high-profile sporting events to distract from less wonderful things that might be going on, including, for instance, human rights abuses. Now, I'm not going to go into every single one of these instances here, and there's actually a really great video that Sideshow did, which I will recommend, and we'll put it up on screen at this moment so you can go find it, that spends a lot of time digging into what Saudi Arabia is doing here and a lot of the issues that they have. But I do want to highlight one thing really quickly, one instance of this, which really resonates with me as a terrible situation. And that's the assassination of a Saudi dissident journalist who worked for the Washington Post. This was back in 2019. He was murdered in the Saudi consulate in Turkey. And you can literally read a transcript of the whole torture and killing of this individual because unbeknownst to them, Turkey had actually had the consulate bugged during the whole thing. And it is crazy that I'm talking about this on this channel about esports coverage, but I guess that's where we have gotten to. I want to be especially clear here that I am not making this video because of any kind of hatred or distaste I have to any specific group of people or region of people, but entirely because I'm incredibly uncomfortable with esports deciding to partner with a government who has a terrible track record of human rights abuses. Now, inevitably with any kind of video like this, you will have people who either watch the video or in most cases, I think, don't watch the video and immediately go to Reddit or Twitter or the comments of this YouTube video and decry the abuses of the US or China or many other groups that are in some way connected to the sport. And to those people, I say, you're right. You are correct that many governments all over the world do fucked up shit. They have in the past and they will again. What's more, I've even attended DreamHack, which is owned by ESL Faceit Group, a company that was acquired by a group funded by the Saudi government back in 2022. And so to all of you, I profess now, yes, I am a hypocrite. But I'm not just a hypocrite on this issue. I believe in workers' rights, and yet I still shop on Amazon and stream on Twitch. I believe in protecting and preserving the environment, and yet I still use plastic straws, and I do not like predatory gaming systems, and yet I have spent money on TFT's gacha system to get little legends. During my grandparents' youth, they could go into the local grocery and they could buy a piece of fruit knowing that it probably came from a farm down the road and they were supporting their neighbor by doing so. Now, if I buy a banana at my local Ralph's, I may be complicit in supporting the seizure of land from locals by a multinational corporation who will exploit the population of an impoverished people while polluting the planet to ship an out-of-season fruit to me so I can buy it at a steep discount. The world today is gray and complicated. So should I just fucking give up? For me, the answer is no. Instead, for me, it's all about finding my own line in the sand and doing my best not to cross it. Last week, I was offered the chance to anonymously work on an EWC project. And many of you know that, for instance, this video will not be sponsored, and none of the other videos on this channel have not been sponsored for quite some time as a result of esports winter. But I did not even ask for the rate for the project before politely turning my friend down. And that's not some big act of bravery. I'm not trying to fall on a sword here and brag about how just I am. It's simply because while I may attend the LCS on most weeks, it is not funded by the US government as a result of its desire to distract from things that it is doing across the world. And while if I had a sponsor, I'd be going to MSI and Chengdu, I do not believe that the entire point of that event is to get people to ignore what China is doing in the world. And when I attend DreamHack, it is 10 years after I originally attended DreamHack back in 2014 in Sweden, when it was a company that had existed for a very long time. And I do not believe that today those shows exist, as they are run in the US at least, for the purpose of making Saudi Arabia the capital of esports over the next 5 years. Much like the banana from my analogy, those things are tangentially connected to some pretty shady stuff, but they are not connected in the same way that the Esports World Cup is. And that is my line, and that is why I will not cross it. Now, setting aside my own personal decisions on this topic, I do want to speak as a fan and voice of this industry for the past 13 years and say that I am incredibly disappointed and disheartened. I've heard many people suggest that this is just where we are as an industry, that in order to survive, we must do this. And I'm not sure I entirely believe that, but even if it is true, I have to ask, like, do we deserve to exist then? If the only way for us to continue to do all of this is to partner with totalitarian regimes with a history of human rights abuse, what are we even doing here? I mean, when I signed up for all of this, I thought it was just going to be about video game competitions, and now I'm making this video talking about assassinations and terrible governments and the decisions they're making. It's just not what I had in mind when I got into all of this a long time ago. Now, I've also heard that some organizations are justifying this by suggesting internally that they will be unable to sign top talent if they do not allow said talent to compete in these events. To which I say, hey, let the talent decide for themselves. That's their own decision, no matter how I feel about it. But just don't let them compete underneath your own brand. I mean, there's no reason to soil your organization's name by being associated with all of this, right? Especially if you aren't in agreement with it. Ultimately, I just feel like these teams want to take the money from this without having their employees feel guilt for being associated with it. And I don't think that you get to have both of those things. You have to either take the money and the guilt, or understand that you're not participating in this and you won't see the upside. You do not need to have your brand name associated with this event. Finally, I do want to talk about Riot Games here, because Riot Games is going to deploy a very reasonable PR strategy of just pretending that they are not involved in this, right? They're not partnered with these folks at all, and you won't see Riot, I think, associated with this event in name or whatever. They're just going to tell you that they are letting teams compete in this of their own free will, and they are not choosing which teams are being sent or running a qualifier or anything along those lines. And that's all bullshit, by the way, because it's not too long ago that Bjergsen was not allowed to compete in a show match that Mr. Beast was running. All right. And now we're going to finally get our international third-party event when Saudi Arabia's government decides that they want to throw something like this. Like, it's so disingenuous. And for all of those of you that do not know, this is not something that this group can just decide to do. Riot actually requires that tournament organizers obtain a license from them, usually paid for. And so this is something that Riot has made the decision to allow. And I assume that they're getting a pretty financial upside from all of this. And maybe I am wrong, and they will come out and clarify that they've received no money from this. But they're not going to do that, because I'm pretty confident they are. And they just don't want us to all know. They want to just pretend that they're not involved at all. Now, normally at the end of my videos, I let people know that I have links in the description where you can support me. And instead of doing that, I'm going to put a link to a place where you can donate to Amnesty International that supports the human rights of people all over the globe, including those in Saudi Arabia. And if you enjoyed this video or you feel moved by it, feel free to support there instead of supporting me. And I'll take all the proceeds from this video and donate it to Amnesty International, the small amount that Google AdSense is on these YouTube videos. So I understand that this will probably get me some people who will unsubscribe from the channel or whatever, but ultimately, I'm sorry, we're just not going to talk about this topic going forward, and I'm disappointed to see the people that are participating in it, and I just don't want to be associated with it.